Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Mike Catron, and joining me, as always, is Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Oh, Michael, how are you this fine day?
I'm doing all right. How did you fare in our listener league last week?
I don't know. I think I dominated, Mike. I think this was my first actually good week.
Yeah, it must have been your first actually good week because you're finally out of the middle of the pack and you've moved into the top four.
That's right. I'm playoff bound.
You certainly are something, maybe. Um, you schooled Helio Dinica, which I'm still saying that wrong, 8-1. But he had some nasty trash talk. I think we have a learned scholar in the listener league. This Jerry guy is kind of taught you a lesson here.
Yeah, he broke my brain, man. I didn't even know what to say. Right? I told him to bring the trash talk, and then he brought it so hard I couldn't even come back.
Yeah, his name apparently means the judges of the ancient Olympic Games, which is far beyond my education. I cheated my way through Greek, which I never took.
I thought you were gonna say you cheated your way through sixth grade.
I did that too. I cheated my way through all the Roman, like all the old Roman stories or the Greek stories or whatever you're supposed to read in English. So
That's way beyond my education level, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, so even though he might know more about you than in Greek history, you knew more about fantasy basketball than him last week at least.
Yes, but I mean, no one's really out of this too hard yet. I mean, we're still a pretty tight pack.
It is very early, very early. Everybody there are more people over 500 or more. Over half the league is 500 or more.
I think it's better, not more.
More. I cheated my way through English.
Mike, I think the big news is you finally dropped to second.
Yeah, a tough week. Also, some trash talk on Twitter. Trust the prospects. Kind of claiming that he was going to beat me a little too early, and I snuck out the 5-4 win. So you better watch yourself. Trust the prospects.
Dude, I got prospects in the rematch. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go against you, Mike.
We will see. It is a long season, and there's still a lot of weeks to be had before the playoffs start in most leagues. And right now is not a time to really assume you're the best team or think you're the worst team.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably somewhere around 15 weeks left still to go before the playoffs kick off in a lot of leagues. So, you've played 4.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
So simple math will tell you that even if you're undefeated, you won all 8 or 9 or 10 or 20 of your categories every single week, there's still a lot more time to get yourself knocked out of the playoffs.
Yes, there's plenty of time to suck, for sure. Let's talk about some of
I want to talk about something that
the
doesn't suck,
news.
Mike.
Oh, what doesn't suck?
Draft.com doesn't suck.
Hey, you're right. Draft.com does not suck. In fact, Draft.com is amazing.
I have been killing it on draft.com.
Really?
I kept saying that all you guys are going to take my money, but you don't want to play me anymore because I figured out the secrets.
Yeah, I actually don't think anyone wants to. I think everybody's kind of frightened of us because we've been killing it in draft.com, which is if you haven't heard, which I assume you have if you've been listening to this podcast, is a daily fantasy basketball application, or you can do it on the web as well, where you basically do a snake draft every single day to pick players, and you basically pit your team against, you could go head to head, you can go against 3 people, 6 people, 10 people, and each night is a new draft. So the best part of the fantasy season, you can do that really every single night and win, cold hard cash.
And it's not just NBA, man. You can play Yeah, NHL,
Yeah.
NFL. I mean, you can play them all on there.
You can even play, I believe, golf on there. It's I like the app. It's very slick. You use PayPal to get your money in and out. It's very simple to use, and if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft, as long as you use the promo code BOXES when you sign up. It's a pretty good deal.
I mean, that's a no risker there, right? I mean, that's only upside.
There is no reason not to do it. I'm telling you, if you know fantasy basketball, it's much different than like your other daily fantasy basketball or daily fantasy, apps or whatever those sites are. I used to play those. I really didn't take it seriously, and I kind of got smoked. And it's simply because of the way the budgets work. And this is not like that at all. You were literally doing a snake draft with a bunch of other people. And that's right up my alley. That's fantasy basketball 101. And so if you're good at fantasy basketball, I think you'd be good at draft.com.
I'm 100% behind you. And it's just fun, man. It makes watching the games every night more fun. So if you're a fan of watching basketball, you'd be a fan of draft.com.
It does make my nightly, it makes it a little bit more stressful as well. But when I'm winning more than I'm losing, and I can only say that that's a pretty good sign.
No doubt about that.
No one's taken us up on the offer to tweet at us using the promo code BOXES so they can play us, and I think everybody's scared out there. I think the listeners are scared.
They don't want me to take their money. I mean, I thought they were going to take mine, but now I'm pretty sure I'm going to take theirs. So watch out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our first tweet.
You know what? I'm hoping Jerry hits me up so I can take him on, because I'm still mad that he schooled me in the trash talk. So I had to school him in our weekly league. But if he wants to hit me up on draft.com, I'll school you on that too, Jerry.
Yeah, bring it. Bring it, Greek freak. So let's go into some of the news that's been going on around the league. Sad news around for all those Rudy Gobert owners. Gobert is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a bone bruise in his right knee.
Bron bruise?
A bron bras in his right knee. It was terrible news.
Yes, so I mean we can talk about the play or not talk about the play. I mean, that really doesn't make any difference now. I mean, it happened.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do we do now, right? He's out. Right? We're not getting him back for a while.
For quite a while. 4 to 6 weeks is a very long time, especially for something like a bone bruise.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not gonna see him until somewhere around the new year, right? I mean, so I mean that's not ideal, and especially a lot of teams. I mean, and I don't own him at all this year, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, it's a guy we liked overall.
But I mean, I just feel like a lot of times when I own him, I kind of build a team specifically around what he's going to do for me, and so to miss him for 4 to 6 weeks is going to be a big hit to a lot of teams.
Yeah. So I mean, but he's a top 30 player, so like basically you can't drop him because that wouldn't make any sense. If you don't have an IR, you can't. You got to stash him on your bench, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like an 8-team league, like maybe you cut him in an 8 or shallower. But yeah, I mean, even if it's 10 or 10 and 12, I'm keeping hold of him, even if I don't have an IR spot. He's just too good to get rid of, right?
Yeah, he's far too good to get rid of, and I would assume with that long of a sitting out, when he comes back, he'll be all right, and he'll be able to come back and produce how he was currently producing before the injury. I think, if you don't have an IR, even if you're an 8-team league, I don't know if you can risk it. I mean, I'd rather, unless you're starting to get smoked in blocks and rebounds, but you're just going to have to stream very rebound block centric, I guess, from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. The interesting thing, I guess, is kind of where do you go? Do you punt those categories for a while? I mean, it all depends on your team too. I mean, that's what happens to me a lot is I end up just trying to punt those categories and go super hard in some other categories, especially in head-to-head leagues. Now in roto leagues, obviously, that's just a big loss you're not getting for a while.
So yeah, on Utah though, that does mean there are minutes to go around at the center spot. a lot of people immediately went up and picked out Derek Favors off their waiver wire if he was still available, and I think that was a pretty good choice. Everyone should be picking up Derek Favors right now.
I'm with you there. I think that he's basically more comfortable, a lot more comfortable without Rudy on the court. Um, and I think he's going to produce some modicum of success. I don't know. Let me just see what your take is. If he can really ramp it back up to pre Rudy Gobert, Derek Favors, or is he
Mm,
somewhere in the what range, Mike? Where's
yeah,
old Derek Favors?
I hate to break it to everybody, but I don't think the addition of Rudy Gobert was the reason Derek Favors dropped off the planet here. I mean, he's had um, quite a few injuries over the last couple of years, and I just think those kind of wore on him, and the team decided to move away from Derek Favors. So I think he will be playing better, considering he'll be playing extended minutes, and he will have a lot more room on the court without Rudy Gobert there to operate. But is he a top 30, top 40 player from for the next 4 to 6 weeks? I highly doubt it.
No, I don't think so either. The blocks have kind of gone down again this year, even though he's playing more minutes. So that's not ideal, obviously. Um, I'm really interested to see where he falls.
Yeah, he has a brutal free throw percentage, and that he doesn't shoot a lot of them, but it's he's shooting 64%. So that kind of sucks. But he is a one type of threat, and that's what was always super interesting about him back in the day. But like, guess what? In today's NBA, there's a lot more 1-1 guys, and if you're only straddling that 1-1 line, you're all right. You're not a top 50 player. Who else on this team ended up getting a bump from the removal of Rudy Gobert?
This thing is perturbing me.
No worries. I can pick up where we left off. You good?
Yep, I got it set now, so it should be good.
All right, cool. No worries. So, what other players are going to be positively affected on Utah from the absence of Rudy Gobert?
Well, we can talk about the other big news, right? Where they started Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, that was a nice thing to see.
And they've been running several extra minutes. I mean, we can talk about him too if you want. Now, Joe Johnson's been out, right? So he's going to come back and get some minutes, and that'll kind of throw what we've been seeing the last few games. Slight bit off kilter, I think. But, man, Donovan Mitchell, he's got that sexy look to him, right? Like he can score, he can handle the ball, he can do some fancy things. But, I mean, that field goal percentage is just looking ugly on a lot of shots a game.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal if you care about your percentages. But I mean, other than that, if you ignore his percentages, right? Why not own him in a standard league if you don't care about field goal?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, half a block a game too. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to keep up necessarily, but he's doing it in the defensive categories, which is something we like. 14 points, almost 2 threes a game. And if the minutes go up, I mean, he's only playing 26.1 for the season. If the minutes go up, man, he could be sexy for fantasy, barring that bad field goal percentage.
Yeah, any worry about Ricky Rubio's like really weird couple nights? He's like shooting absolute trash over the last few evenings.
No, I'm not super worried in the sense that I think that he was shooting really hot and now he was. And I mean, the thing that has been weird, if you want to say that, is the assists have been down, but I think that's kind of a little bit of an anomaly too.
Yeah, I think there's just something up right now, like especially with the injuries and the adjustments with the rotation. Like, something's up with Ricky Rubio, and I'm not too worried about it though. This might be a good buy low.
Oh, no doubt. We talked about this with guys like Paul Millsap, right? In the last couple shows, is just I think these guys all kind of take a little bit of time to find their level, to fit in with the new team, to just kind of feel out everybody. And so I think that he's still kind of in that process now. And they have more up people, right? Because things just continually change with the starting lineup and then the injuries. So I think Ricky will be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It looks like they're really just kind of playing more Cephalosha, more Donovan Mitchell, a little bit more. They'll probably play a little bit more Joe Johnson. It doesn't look like they're going to directly replace Rudy Gobert because really they don't have anyone to directly replace him.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. The thing I'll say about Cephalosha is if you need steals, I mean, he's a great source of that, especially like stream-wise. Now, he's not great to hold, right, because he doesn't do a lot else. But, I mean, if you really need a steals guy, I have no problem holding him. Another interesting guy is Rodney Hood, right? Okay, so he got replaced in the starting lineup, and I saw some panic because he's kind of a back-end guy, right? And everyone was like, oh, what do I do with Rodney Hood? And then he's been pretty good, even since he got benched. Probably just a point streamer, though, right? I mean, like, he doesn't really do much else.
No, not much else there. And we were not huge Rodney Hood fans going into the season, and I'm still not. I'm still not a Rodney Hood fan. He scores.
Well, and too, you got to worry about the injuries. Like, I mean, for the price that Rodney Hood was going in some drafts, I definitely wasn't on board, and I think that's going to prove to be pretty good on our part.
So yeah, let's talk about D'Angelo Russell. He's been out. He's gonna be out for about 3 or 4 games. It doesn't seem too serious, right? But unless there's been breaking news since I last read, what happened?
Well, and this is another one of those injuries where, okay, they say he's gonna miss several games. Like, what does that really mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
it could be one of those things too where we're saying 3 and then 3 turns into a Kawhi Leonard. I mean, who knows, right?
I don't think it's going to be that drastic. It's diagnosed as a left knee contusion, and those can be pretty legit. I mean, Rudy Gobert's got a bone bruise, right? So it's not as bad as a bone bruise, which, man, if that's gonna put you out 4 to 6 weeks, that's
It's the
pretty
same.
brutal, right? But a left knee contusion is probably is the minor version of that, and so that lingers, right?
Yeah, and I mean we've seen guys, and I won't speak specifically to Nets players, but I know we've seen in the last few years guys say, "Oh, he's got a knee contusion," and then it turns out that actually what he had was Rudy Gobert's bone bruise that misses 4 to 6 weeks. So
So yeah,
it's very much up in the air at this point. Our friends at Basketball Monster are reporting that he comes back next week.
would you
I
try to
don't know if
move
that's going to
D'Angelo
actually.
Russell? Are you worried about this injury enough to try to move D'Angelo?
Not really. I mean, we have no reason to think that it's super serious at this point. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if they come back in a week and say, "Oh, he's out another week," and then he's out another week, and then I mean, Seth Curry, right? We thought, "Oh, he might miss the first week of the season," and here we are 5 weeks in, and he still hasn't played a game.
It has been a while since we have seen Seth Curry.
So I guess that's my point: is just because they say it's only a few games, they lie, man. They lie.
Yeah, and what's the rush, right? If you're the Nets, what's the rush to bring D'Angelo back so he can get hurt again? He's someone you've invested building around, so he is a point guard of the future for you, and there's no reason to rush him back. On top of that, the Nets aren't trying to win games; they're trying to get in that lottery. So, what is the reason to rush him back? Which makes Spencer Dinwiddie a lot more interesting fantasy prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, is there any reason not to own Spencer Dinwiddie while D'Angelo is out? I think
No,
he's kind of a pick up and hold, right? I mean, he's got to be the point guard.
there's no one else that's going to be the point guard on this team. I know that Archie Goodwin had a pretty good night in in Brooklyn here, but again, I guess he had a good night against Chicago. So I'm not gonna chalk that up to literally anything.
Well, and here's what I'll say, right? He missed the last game with an injury. They say he's ready to play. Now he is Spencer Dinwiddie, so don't freak out.
Let me take that back. I'm looking at I was looking at a really wrong game there. Ignore everything I just said about Spencer Dinwiddie. What in the world was I looking at? I didn't play the Bulls.
I don't know. I was not sure what you were talking about with the Bulls.
I kind
I
of
thought you were like maybe
about a game that happened in 2016.
I thought maybe you're talking about one of your fantasy games here. You just made it up just in your mind.
What the
So
hell was I clicking on?
Dinwiddie ought to get some good assists, right? And some decent steals. He's had a couple 20-point games this year. I don't know that you're going to see that, but I mean, anything's possible. He could see, I would guess probably about 10 shots. So, I mean, if he really can hit, there's some upside there. He's not going to be great, but he's going to be worth holding, I think, until
Does
Theo
that
comes back.
does that like bump up the value of Alan Crabb and Damari Carroll?
I mean, we talked about this the last time, right? Who would we rather have, LeVert or Crab? I think it boosts up the value of LeVert a little bit, in the sense that I think he's probably going to see a few more minutes. They're really light on ball handling guards and guards in general now, right? They lost Lynn, they lost Russell. I mean, are they going to play Isaiah Whitehead? I mean, maybe, but
Doubt it.
But that doesn't sound too appealing. So I could see him kind of running like a LeVert Crab backcourt. And I mean, I don't know where they get the ball handling from. Maybe let Damari Carroll handle it a little bit. I mean, that might go a little badly, but I mean, they're going to have to do something. Joe Harris, does he get in there and handle the ball a little bit? I mean,
no.
there's a lot of ugly names here. So could we see Dinwiddie playing like 38 minutes a night?
I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, probably not 38 minutes, right? But 30 plus.
Yeah, and that's a lot for a Nets player, right? Mr. Kenny Atkinson does not like to play anyone more than 30 minutes a night. So I would guess you see something like 30 and 18 for Isaiah Whitehead. Maybe, or maybe we let Crab handle the ball and be the de facto point guard. It'd be interesting to see how they chalk it up here tomorrow night.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting few days over in Brooklyn. D'Angelo hopefully back sooner than later, and I figured out where I had my stroke out here just now, is that I wanted to talk about the return of Rajon Rondo.
Oh my lord. Let's
And
not. Let's just call
I
it a night.
I ended up clicking on the final Bulls game of last year. When I saw Jimmy Butler's name, I was like real confused on the box score because Spencer Dinwiddie did play 31 minutes. They scored 73 points and the Bulls smoked them. So, good times back in the day when the Bulls were on their way to the playoffs to beat the Boston Celtics until Rondo got injured. And Rondo is back
So
from
good.
injury right now.
Yeah, he played what, 5 tonight? He had a
Played
minutes
5 minutes.
limit of he had a 6 minute limit, right? He could play 6 minutes, and he played
Why are
5.
you even playing him if the limit is 6 minutes?
Get that. I guess the whole thing was he only had the stamina probably to play 6 minutes, and they didn't want him to sit and then go back out.
He's pretty old.
And so that's just my guess. So obviously it's gonna be a rough few weeks. Obviously he's worth owning and holding. Is now the moment you try to sell Rajon Rondo? He's back. You held him. Do you try to sell him?
I
Because
don't think his value is high enough to sell him unless you think he's going to be such a complete, like if you think he's just going to be a big turd the rest of the year and he's not going to play a ton, and you think he's just going to struggle, then yeah, I guess if you think he's going to fall out of a standard league value once he plays 2 full weeks, then yeah, move him right now.
well, and here's the worry with Rondo, right? Is Rondo's I mean, whatever you want to call it. He's been known to get benched here in the last few years. He's been known to see the minutes take a hit for at least parts of the season, right? For not really too much of an apparent reason. Um, and the other thing too is, I mean, other than the great assists he gives you and the steals, right? Like he doesn't help your percentages. He's gonna get you some rebounds, but like no blocks. And I mean, he's what is he gonna score? Maybe 10 points a game? Maybe, probably
Yeah,
not even.
it's going to take
So
him a couple weeks to get even just back into playing shape, let alone into the swing of things. So it's going to be another month or so before he's hitting at all cylinders, and that's a long time to wait. So if you think you can get some value for Rajon Rondo right now for someone who needs a guard, why not?
yeah, so you want to look at some guys? Maybe we could play the would you rather move Mr. Rondo for?
Sure, let's throw him at me.
All right, you have Rajon Rondo, and you can buy the currently injured Steven Adams.
Ooh, how long is he out? Steven Adams out for?
Kind of a day-to-day injury. Could be back at any
I'd
point.
much rather have Steven Adams.
So would I. He
Yeah,
did sit out, right, the last 2 games, but
that's okay.
I think he's going to be back in relative short order. So there's kind of one you can pop off real quick. Let's see here. Rondé Hollis Jefferson.
Oh, I like Rondé Hollis Jefferson. He's great.
You'd rather have him than Rondo?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And isn't that the type of move that can be made, especially in a lot of leagues where Rondo has the name value, right? Oh, he's a point guard. Oh, he
Yeah,
gets
nobody cares about Rondé Hollis Jefferson, even though he's played pretty well over the last 2 games, right? But you're right. Rondo has the name recognition.
Gary Harris, your boy.
Yeah, 100%. I'd rather have Gary Harris.
And these are all trades I think that you can kind of make. I'll go even a little further down. How about someone like JJ Redick?
I think I'd rather have JJ Redick.
That's what I mean. Like these players that I'm saying don't really have much risk, right? You know pretty much what you're going to get from these guys.
Let me throw one more at you.
All right, let's do it.
Etwan Moore.
Oh, golly. I think I got to take Rondo at that point. I mean,
Etwan Moore is going to suffer from the return of Rondo. And if Rondo is playing well, Etwan Moore is probably not playing a lot of minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, Eton Moore just isn't a super fantasy friendly guy in the role he's going to be asked to play, which is,
No,
right now he's getting the ball in his hands a little bit more, I think, than, I mean, we know what happens when Rondo gets out there, right? It's Rondo, Rondo,
it's the
Rondo,
Rondo show.
Rondo. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that Eton Moore, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season, even Drew Holiday, when Rondo gets back out to playing, I think Drew Holiday's value is going to take a hit.
Would you try to sell Drew Holiday right now?
Oh, 100%. I've been telling people to sell Drew Holiday for like the last 2 weeks.
I'm with you there. I think you should definitely be selling Drew Holiday. I got Drew Holiday in the listener league, and I tried to move him earlier to some team, and the guy's like, "I listened to your podcast, you idiot," and I was like, "Damn it!" So I couldn't trick him into taking Drew Holiday.
Do you think he listens to our podcast in the listener league? Now that's just crazy talk.
I didn't really think that one through.
That
was on me.
I picked up Rajon Rondo off the waivers, so I'm gonna have to try to trade him before this post. So I'm gonna just send out a whole bunch of offers just right now as we're recording this.
Not the worst idea. Let's talk about streaming.
Let's talk about streaming.
Let's
talk about streaming.
Is that let's talk about sex, but let's talk about streaming?
It might have been. I'm not sure. I didn't think it through.
We're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on that one. But no, Tyler, out on #basketball.com, you every single week on Sunday evening you publish a fantasy week primer, and it's probably one of the best articles out there that you can find if you are preparing, especially if you're in a weekly league, but if even in a daily league, it is a good way to prepare for the week ahead so you can get an idea of what teams are playing more games, what players are more interesting than other ones. And I thought I would let you wax on about it, and maybe I can ask you some questions about this thing.
All right, so yeah, I mean, so the goal of it, right, is for head-to-head leagues to maximize your games, right? That's the easiest way to win. It will always be the easiest.
Yeah, you should always be doing that.
It would always be the easiest way to win in a head-to-head league. So, I mean, the schedule this week is just not great for it. And we can talk about a little bit why here in a minute. The games are actually, we got a good spread of games, but they're a weird spread in the sense that we got only one team playing 2 games, which is nice, right? We got 9 teams playing 4 games, and then the other 20 all play 3 games. So that sounds like a good mix, right, of games. Like,
sure.
And it sounds like, we could use these 9 teams to kind of get a nice advantage, and we can sit most of our Thunder player to, minimize that. But it's like the way the schedule falls we have 3 pretty heavy days, and then the rest of the days have almost no games. Getting the back-to-backs this week became very, very difficult.
And this is where the new schedule, you're starting to see affect how fantasy basketball is played.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and there's a few more weeks like this coming up where it's just like, oh man, this is not good for anything. So, we can talk a little bit more about the article, and then I'll talk about what I really want to recommend most people do in their head-to-head leagues.
Yeah. Well, I would say since this is a week where not a lot of teams are playing more than 3 games, this is a very important week to be maximizing your waiver moves.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I talked a little bit about quality games, right? The Warriors, the Celtics, and the Rockets all have 3 games where their schedule is very, very light. So those guys are probably worth picking up and holding a little bit, even if they're worse players, right? Like, we can talk about guys like Andre Iguodala. Like, he's not getting a ton of minutes, he's not getting a ton of production, but if you can get 3 games of Andre Iguodala versus, let's say, 1 game of Rodney Hood,
yeah,
right? Like, Andre Iguodala could score more points than Rodney Hood's 1 game in his 3 games.
Plus all the intangibles that Iguodala usually brings.
And so that's kind of how you got to look at things, right? Like, okay, we can all agree that Rodney Hood is probably a better points player than Andre Iguodala. If points is the only category you care about this week, it's the only category you think is going to be close. But 3 games versus 1, you got to look at that too. And that's where I think people mess up streaming the most is they don't look at the number of games they're going to get from a player. They just look at, ooh, this guy gives me 15 points a game.
Yeah. Oh, or the reverse, right? They'll look at how many games they'll get. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get 4 games versus 3 games, and it's like, well, 4 games from Andre Roberson is not the same as 3 games from, let's say, Alex Lynn.
Yeah, and you also got to pay attention to your lineup, and that's the part of this whole schedule article I can't do. Right? Is I said there's 3 heavy game days. There's 11 games on Wednesday and Friday, and there's 9 games. There were 9 games on Monday night. So obviously you're done with Monday night now. So Wednesday and Friday, there's 11 games apiece. Maybe you can still stream on a Wednesday or Friday, though. Maybe you have a couple of guys on some of those teams that aren't playing. I don't know your roster. So I can only help you so much, I guess is my point. You got to look at your actual roster and work around the schedule a little bit yourself.
Yeah, we're here to get you like 75% of the way. Everybody else, you're just going to have to take our decision making and get you the rest of that 25%. So let's make some decisions on who we might look into streaming this week.
Let's do it.
So I like this. You got a top 10 of people owned in 40% or less of leagues. And I think that's a pretty good starting spot. Who is one of your favorite guys on this list?
So we talked about one of them. It's Donovan Mitchell. It's probably my favorite one this week. And I think we maybe glossed over a little quickly why, right? Is just all the production is really good except for that field goal percentage. So, I mean, even in leagues, okay, roto leagues will exclude those, right? He's probably not a great roto player at this point because the shot attempts are heavy. In any other league, I think I can cover Donovan Mitchell's tracks almost and maybe still even win that field goal percentage if I've got a pretty solid field goal percentage team. So I'm probably picking up Donovan Mitchell and holding him even, right? So this is kind of a stream for the week in a weekly league, but I would say that Donovan Mitchell is probably a hold for the rest of the season for me in pretty much all head-to-head leagues.
I'm a little surprised about one of the players on this list.
All right, let's hear it.
He is owned in only 30% of leagues, which doesn't make any sense to me. Taj Gibson is a starter on the T-Wolves. Taj Gibson is playing 31 minutes a night. Taj Gibson has had multiple games with double-digit rebounds. He's even hit a few three-pointers, which is, who isn't shooting threes this year? I understand he doesn't really do much else than points and rebounds, but in a standard league, those good percentages plus points and rebounds, why would you not maybe even own Taj Gibson?
Well, here's the worry, right? Is there's not a lot of points, right? He's not even getting double digits. So that's kind of a bad check mark there. Half a block from a big man? Like, you don't love that, right? We talk about this all the time, right? Threes are up like crazy. His 0.2 he's getting you is a negative. Okay, so then you go one assist a game. Like, okay, well, 1 assist is an assist, but doesn't everybody get close to 1 assist?
I think you're making some good points on why he's not maybe owned in standard leagues. I think if you need points and rebounds, though, this is a nice into the bench guy to own. But better yet, like you've indicated, he is a incredibly good stream candidate if you're going to need rebounds off the waiver wire.
And I think some people were surprised I put Tyson Chandler over him, but I think we've just hit on it, right? What is Taj Gibson? He's really kind of a rebound stream, right? Well, Tyson Chandler, even in the minutes he's getting, right, which is not a lot, he is a rebounding machine. He's in the top 20 in the NBA in rebounds this season.
In like 20-something minutes, right?
Yeah. So we're talking kind of about 2 rebound streams there. So you want the guy with more rebounds at that point. So that's why I had Tyson Chandler ahead. Now, Taj Gibson is getting over a steal a game this season, but I have no reason to think that holds up considering he's been right around half to 0.6 steals per game for his entire career, even when he's played similar minutes to what he's playing now. So I don't really understand why some people think that number is going to hold. I think he's just kind of gotten a little bit lucky in the first 12 games.
Yeah, and now with the addition of Greg Monroe into that situation, who, there's a potential, I said go take a flyer on Greg Monroe. The injury looks like it's lasting a little longer than I thought it would, which is a little disappointing. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep this taking this flyer on Greg Monroe. I'm a little pot committed at this point, but possibly a bad decision to take a flyer on Greg Monroe in one of my shallower leagues. But in a standard league, I'm still going to hold. I mean, let's see what I want to see what happens because I'm doing okay. I'm not struggling in my head-to-head league.
And here's what I said about that. Right, I have Tyson Chandler and Alex Len was number 10 on my list for the week. But here's what I said, and here's why I went with Tyson Chandler at number 3 and Alex Len at number 10. I said, even if Greg Monroe comes back, if I'm going to bet that Tyson Chandler or Alex Len keeps their spot and Greg Monroe fills the spot of one of those two guys, I'm going to say that Tyson Chandler keeps playing minutes and Alex Len is the one who gets replaced by Greg Monroe.
I think that's a pretty good hypothesis.
And so, right, I could be wrong about that. Right? I don't get to coach the Suns, unfortunately. It would be cool if I did. But that's the way I went with it. So if you some reason feel like Alex Len is their guy, maybe you're switched up on that, but I'm not falling for it.
I don't think so. I think Alex Len would already be the guy if he was their guy. And we've said that before.
He's playing on that qualifying offer too, which makes me think like he's gone regardless. So why they're not really committed to him at all anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, future Chicago Bull is what I just heard. Let's talk about two more Phoenix Suns players, Tyler Ulis and Mike James, kind of switching starting roles here. Is there anything to take from that?
Well, I mean, we were here last week, right, where we said Mike James is starting and he's getting more minutes. And
we're like, keep Mike James.
And now it looks like it's switching the other way, where it's still they're still splitting the minutes. But now Ulis is going to start, and Ulis is going to get the 27, 28. And Mike James looks like he's going to be around the 20. And, I mean, I think this is going to be a headache. I think they both are going to shoot terrible field goal percentages. They're both going to get you some assists and, 2 rebounds a game and, 8 points and just be a huge headache. I think the guy you really want to own and the guy who's going to have some extra ancillary value than what we thought is Devin Booker.
Yeah, he's been surprisingly better. We kind of thought he was a one-trick pony, and it looks like he's adding some things to his game, some rebounds and some assists, and it looks like they're almost trying to develop him into some sort of point guard hybrid of some sort, because they obviously got rid of Bledsoe. They didn't want him to play with Bledsoe at all. And Ulis and James are super incompetent. Even with James getting less minutes here with Ulis starting, I mean, is Mike James still the better fantasy player? Or do you think Ulis's ability to get steals is something to be interested in?
I honestly think they're pretty much the same in the sense that I don't know that I want to really own either one. Streaming any one, though, any night, I think that they could at any time get you some decent assists and a few rebounds and a steal and maybe 10 points. I think we saw some anomalous shooting games from Mike James, and it's making his fantasy value look better than it could possibly be. But I would agree he has the higher ceiling, right? I don't think you're going to see Tyler Ulis scoring 24 points in a game at any point this season like we saw Mike James already do once. And he scored 18 points 3 more times.
Yeah, but it's all about the minutes, and I think you said it correctly when you said they're basically the same player. I mean, they're not exactly the same player, and Mike James is definitely going to be a little bit more of a scorer, but whoever's getting 27 or more minutes is the person to stream.
Yeah.
And in this case, Tyler Eulis is. So if you hear Mike James is starting, just switch it up.
Yep, just do the old swap around there. Yeah, I'm not super intrigued by either one though, right? Like this is not it's not a Donovan Mitchell situation where I'm saying hold this guy. I'm saying have him, own him for a few games, kick him to the back curb, have him for a few more games, kick him to the curb. Like if Mike and I are playing in the same league and I own Mike James today, and then I cut him and Mike picks him up, I'm like, okay, Mike, well you enjoy his 4 rebounds and like I don't care, right? I just like whatever.
You have to be able to part with at least 2 to 3 players on your roster because there's always, you would hope that the bottom of your roster. And I actually think this is a little bit of a handcuff, right? If you have a roster so deep where your bench, if you drop them, someone would pick them up immediately and they would start on another team, you need to make a trade. That's just not worth the value. Like, I understand you're streaming these guys in. You're probably doing very well in your league because you have all these very good bench players, right? But if you can't stream games, you're going to play 3 to 5 less games than the next person, and you're still going to be at a disadvantage, even though you have the better players.
And, you don't have to win every trade. I think this is kind of a common misconception, right? Is, maybe I'm giving the guy a little bit more value than I'm getting back. But at the same point, my team is getting better. So, like, maybe I trade a top 50 player and a top 70 player for the best I can get to a top 40 player. Well, the top 40 player is better than the top 50 player I traded. And the top 70 player, the 7 games or 5 games or however much my streaming spots will allow me, is going to be better than that top 70 players 3 or 4 games in most weeks.
Yeah, this is it. I think a lot of people are like, okay, whoever gets the best player in this trade won, or whoever happens to fleece the other guy. That idiot thought Joe Johnson was good. I got him. It's like, okay, great job, right? But those are leagues with people who are, if you're so much better than a lot of people and you're like fleecing like 3 to 5 people in your league with trades, like maybe you're playing in the wrong league. Like, if you know what you're doing, challenge yourself. Find a group of people who actually know something about fantasy basketball and play them, and then see how you fare. And this is something that you don't learn from buy low and sell high. If you can technically lose a trade, like I looked at I compared the 2 sides of that trade, and side B won and side A lost. It was like, well, I was side A, but I'm in a roto league, and that was one of my bench players, and I was never going to play him, and I needed an upgrade at center, and now I have an upgrade at center. I actually won that trade, even though technically I got the worst player.
Yeah, and here's another thing I'll say, right? And this is why I hate leagues where they vote, is no one really knows what the value of any of these players are, in the sense that things can change super, super quickly. And I'll tell you a quick story here. So during Nikola Jokic's rookie year, you guys can go back and look at this. But some of you will probably remember, like, he started off the year and he was barely playing and he wasn't producing much at all. And for about it was about 5 games, maybe 10 games into the season, right? And like he had topped out at like probably 18 minutes a night. And I got this trade offer, and it was Nikola Jokic for Mike Conley straight up. And I couldn't hit accept fast enough, right? It was like, okay, Mike Conley was a beast at that time and like a top 30 player, and Nikola Jokic had barely played at all.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, this sounds good. And so I made the deal, and for a few weeks it still looked pretty good. And then Nikola Jokic started breaking out in the second half of that season, and Mike Conley sat out the entire second half of that season with that Achilles injury. And that dude won that trade. He fleeced me in that trade, and everybody in the league thought I fleeced him.
And technically at the time you did. And that guy didn't have any insight into the rotation, unless his like dad was the coach of the Denver Nuggets. But that rotation was real weird. That were Nurkic and Jokic there for a while, but Jokic was not an unknown player. People thought he could be very good. So it's not like this was a Vito-esque trade. It was just at the time looked like a bad trade, and then it turned out it didn't, and that's why vetoes, being able to vote to veto trades, never works. Stop playing in leagues. Stop setting up your league where players can vote on trades. That's how trades never get done.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one example, right? Of we don't really know. Maybe that guy knew something. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he got lucky, right? But luck is sometimes a part of this, right? So if you just have a hunch that, I don't know, Austin Rivers is going to be the best player in fantasy in the second half, and that's really what you think, then if that's the trade you want to make, man, if you want to trade Austin Rivers for Giannis, go for it, man. It's your team.
Yeah, exactly. And so also, if you're in a league where people are able to vote on trades, stop being a dick. Stop vetoing trades just because you're not part of the trade. Stop vetoing trades because you think someone's getting screwed over. If it's not collusion, it shouldn't be vetoed, and that's how this works.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Bad managers do not count. If there's a bad manager, I got an idea. Trade with that dude. Like, go get some of his players.
Yeah, right? I mean, like, if he's making bad trades, make one with him. Say, hey, man, I'll give you my Emmanuel Mudiay for your insert good player here. Ben Simmons.
D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
That's not a bad trade. So I think that is it for tonight. Tyler, do you have any anything to plug? I think you just put out how I love those drafts, those mock drafts, 2018 mock drafts, because it is the only thing I care about as a Chicago Bulls fan.
Yeah, so one just ran there on Sunday afternoon. It is a beast, relative 8,000 words of things about all of the first round prospects in the 2018 mock draft. And I will say this, it looks like a pretty deep draft. And this, for the first time in a while that I can remember, there's like 5 guys, I think, that could all legitimately be the number 1 pick at this point. And we got a guy coming up on the outside, right, from Europe, and we don't see those number 1 picks very often. And then there's kind of like 4 guys playing in the NCAA this season that all are kind of pushing for that spot, but no one is consensus at this point, right? Like the last few years we've had, Ben Simmons, he's the consensus number 1 guy. Markelle Fultz, he's the consensus number 1 guy. We don't have that this year. And so I kind of like that as making the draft a little bit more intriguing.
Well, what's wild is that any one of those guys, like you're saying, could be the number 1 pick, but any one of those guys could deserve the number 1 pick, which means having a top 5 pick this year, you might be stumbling into a pretty legit superstar.
Yeah, and if you're a draft fan, I'll say this. I mean, I'm not a guy who watches like a crazy amount of college basketball like some people, but there's a game on Tuesday evening. Duke is playing Michigan State, and literally half of my top 10 is playing in that game.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually going to watch that game. I'm going to watch so much more college basketball this year.
If you are going to watch a college basketball game all season long, this might be the one. There's half of my top 10. You can read the article to see the players. There's 3 guys from Duke in my top 10. There's 2 guys from Michigan State.
It's going to be exciting. I'm 100% looking forward to college basketball season this year. What I like the most is that no matter where the Bulls end up, there's a good chance they're not going to be able to make a wrong pick. I mean, they'll make the wrong pick, but hopefully they can't make a terrible pick simply because there's so much talent in the draft.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that they did all right last year. It says that they got Markkanen, who looks like a solid NBA player.
The Bulls draft well. That's about all they do.
And you know what I mean? And there's so many talented guys, and the Bulls, let's face it, they're going to have one of the 5 worst records, right? I mean, like, there's no way that doesn't happen. So they're going to be in prime position to get somebody pretty juicy.
Yeah, I'm actually worried if they get the number 1 pick though, that they'll totally blow it.
And there's a couple of guys even later in that first round that I kind of really like. So I think they're going to be all right, regardless of where they go in that top 10.
Yeah, man. You just think like this rookie class is pretty stellar. Last year's rookie class was pretty stellar. There's a couple good guys in the one before that. You just really think like, oh, like the NBA is going to be like somehow more talented in the near future than it is right now, and that seems impossible.
Well, I think we're just getting a lot more like hybridy players, right? And we don't have like these molds of like you're a giant big man who can't ever touch the ball and just dunks it, like DeAndre Jordan type, right? We don't see those guys much anymore, and we've gotten a lot more amorphous with the positions and a lot more shooting, and so it's just we're making more talented players, and that we're getting a newer, more talented brand of basketball, I think.
And I think the coaches aren't forcing these kids at a young age to be like, hey, you're the tallest guy on the court, work on your post moves, that's it.
Nope.
It's like, oh yeah, if that guy can dribble and run and pass, like he should be doing those things too, because that's incredibly valuable.
Well, yeah, and then you got guys like Ben Simmons, right? Like there was a time where Ben Simmons would never be Ben Simmons, right? He would be a post player because he's huge. But I mean, he can do those things, and someone at some point let him do those things, and that's important.
Yeah, those are like in the 90s, those are the kids who got yelled at in high school basketball practice for shooting threes. Stop shooting. Actually, Ben Simmons should probably still get yelled at for shooting threes, but it's like, oh, you're 6'10", stop shooting threes.
Oh man, I got to tell you this. So this was the best thing about my mock draft, and I'll end with this quick story. So I was looking through the people, and I don't know if you remember this guy from last year's draft or not. He was like in there for a hot minute, and he kind of made a little bit of noise because he was going to be the first guy in this era who didn't go to college and was eligible for the draft. His name is Hamidou Diallo. He plays for Kentucky. I won't tell that part of the story today, but I found this article, and it was basically just Coach Calipari ripping this guy, saying that if he ever shoots a three-pointer, he's immediately going to bench him because he apparently is a terrible shooter and just loves to chuck. And Coach Calipari just goes crazy in this article about, if you shoot, I'm going to bench you. So if you read the thing, when you get to his thing, click on the article about Hamidou Diallo and his no three-point shooting.
Huh. I will check that out for sure. Where can we find that article?
This guy's a wing, so like it's kind of weird, and I think it's going to hurt his draft stock a little bit. But he's a freaky athlete, so he's still kind of
a monster. I'm looking at him right now.
He's still kind of in the middle of my first round. The easiest way to probably find it, because it'll get kind of buried on the site that it's on, is just go to my Twitter. I'll be tweeting it out. It'll probably be one of the top tweets because I'm scheduled to do a couple more tweets of it in the next few days.
What's your Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at Watsy4444.
Perfect. And you can find me at Watch the Boxes. And if you like the podcast and you want to send us feedback, send us, tweet us directly. We respond to stuff pretty quickly. And if you have suggestions for the show, things you want to hear about, questions, etc., topics, new segments, if you got ideas for new segments, just tweet at us, and we'll basically do that for you, because why not? Let's we gotta give the people what they want, And if you go to draft.com, be sure to use the promo code BOXES, and if you want to tweet that at us as well, so we can steal your money in draft.com, that would be fantastic for us.
Come at me, Jerry. Come at me, man. Yeah. I'm waiting.
Bring it, Jerry. We're waiting for you. I think that's it for tonight. Anything else, Tyler?
No, that's it, man.
All right, let's call it one. We will catch you guys very soon. Thanks for joining us.